What's up, word warriors? Here is the next installment of Alchemic scripting. So we have come up with our concept. Hopefully it's something really interesting and you've twisted it around. And you have developed an unforgettable cast of characters. So now the next thing that you need to decide is your setting. One thing that I'm learning, and I've just now implemented after 15 years of writing, believe it or not, is using the setting of the book to actually help get your message across. I've really never thought of using my setting as anything other than the stage that the cast is playing on. So when I say setting, I mean, is the book going to be staged, is a plane getting hijacked? Are we going to be, on vacation in Hawaii? Is your character traveling through Europe? I want you to think about what the concept is for your story and then build your setting to actually say something that's going to really accentuate what the overall message of the book is going to be. Setting, really important. Once you decide what your setting is going to be, then you also are going to kind of need to decide the timeline in which the story is going to take place. I've read some books, they take place in 24 hours or less, and then there are books that are extended over a year's time. And I think it's really important to decide that before you start writing. So you're going to decide what your setting is, and then you're going to decide how long this story, what the time frame is that you're telling the story in. Once you do that, constructing the outline is about taking all of your research, your character development, your concept, and implementing that into the outline. I've written outlines two ways. I've written them where I sit down and I literally outlined the entire book, chapter by chapter. And then I've outlined books where I outline a chapter or two, I write them, and then I generate the outline for the coming chapters. I don't know what's going to work best for you, but I will say, I believe that trying to map out the entire book in one sitting really kind of puts you as the writer, meaning you are not allowing a whole lot of room for those happy accidents or the genius to come through. I think in order to integrate your spiritual flow, writing the outline only for a few chapters so you have a roadmap as you're going is really the best. It's the best way to go. It allows you to have the planning. It's like you're getting the best of both worlds. You've got the planning, but then you're also leaving room for the magic to happen. I can't stress to you enough the importance, though, of outlining. You don't want to, I don't care how good the writing is, you do not want to get into writing a book and you're just writing aimless scenes. The dialogue has no real purpose because you're sitting there trying to figure out what you're trying to say. That's going to lead to a lot of editing, and most of the time you're going to end up ditching that idea because you get to a certain point, and I'm sure you've got pieces, I know I do, that I didn't properly map out. And I got 30 or 40 pages into it, and I scrapped the idea. It's so much better to think your ideas through and then implement them with some sort of strategy in mind. This is definitely what I've learned, and my whole purpose in doing this series is for you writers out there who you love the written word, you love to read, and part of your purpose in this lifetime is to generate something with a message that you can bring out there. without having to go through some of the painful process of hacking a book to death. You can have the best idea, but after you've hacked it up for long enough, you will disregard it because it loses that freshness and that excitement, and you're just done with it. I did that with that big red book that I showed you. It just got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. After 5 years of reworking the same story, I was just completely over it. The setting, it's something I want to discuss a little bit further. The book that I'm working on right now, I'm not going to discuss what I'm doing, the setting that I chose. It is nothing of what the kinds of settings that I normally would pick for a story. It's like my brain just went, I can't even believe that I didn't think of that right from the get-go, but that is part of this process and why I'm trying to bring it to you, because you get these inspired thoughts sometimes. I was in the gym when it happened. Here's another thing too, when you're blocked with something, move on to working on a different aspect of it. If you've got only 5 of your characters for your cast laid out right now, and you're really scratching your head, you don't know where else to take it, that's when you go into working on your setting. And then you're gonna go, oh, I need this character to serve this function and this character to serve that function. So it's kind of like developing all of the pieces. As you put the puzzle together, the picture will become more clear. I'm going to encourage you, once you have figured out your setting and your timeline, maybe you've outlined your first chapter or 2. Do not jump right into writing the book. What I want you to do is I want you to go back over your concept now. And then I want you to go back over your characters and your cast, and I want you to refine them. Before you ever write that first sentence to the first chapter, I want you to really go over your idea and contemplate it for about a week. Make it the best that it can be, because the first setting you come up with may not be the one that you use. This is part of great writing. Your first idea rarely is the one that you're going to use. Dig deep. And that goes with every facet of this. The great thing about doing the chapter by chapter outline, the way that I construct it is at the top of the page. You know, I've got the chapter number, obviously, that's a no-brainer. But I'll put the time of day, the day of the week, so you can keep this consistent. If you're going to have a book that spans over a year's time, you wouldn't believe when you write a 300-page novel, you lose track. What day is it supposed to be? You know, what season it is. And so in order to keep things organized, just put that at the top of the page. The other thing that I do with my chapter by chapter outline, not only am I going to figure out the date, the time frame, but I have my plot point. And what's the plot point? Every single chapter should have a conflict or a resolution of a conflict within it. There isn't just a lot of flowery writing and descriptions. Every chapter basically needs to have a specific purpose that is pushing your story forward. So if you write a chapter that doesn't do that, you might as well just axe it. So why don't we just go ahead and do that right now and figure it out before you have to axe 30 pages of writing, or 10 pages, or 15, or whatever. So your plot point is your focus. Think of it, you've got the major climax of your story. That's usually going to happen. You've got the build-up. Your climax usually happens the chapter before your resolution, and that's the end of the book. You don't want to drag out the end of the book and have 4 or 5 chapters after your climax, okay? So, and the way that I plan my books is I have actually several climaxes. I don't have just one, and it keeps the reader engaged and excited. I'll talk to you more about that if you're writing a series, how you can actually sit down, and I draw out my books before I actually write them. It looks like almost like a piece of music. And I can see the dips and the high points of the story. And in a series, I actually change so there isn't a formula that the reader's like, oh, this is the chapter that things are going to get resolved. Because readers start to figure that out, especially in a series. And so I will move around where my climaxes are. And that's getting a little bit more technical, so we'll wait on that side of it. But these are all things that you're going to map out and think about as you're writing your chapter by chapter outline. So your plot point is basically like your little synopsis for each chapter. Okay, this is what's going to happen. There should always be either an internal or external conflict that your protagonist is meeting up against. Either something, and I like to vary it. So if we had some high external action going on in chapter 1, then in chapter 2, the lull is going to be an emotional conflict that the character, or if you're writing romance, something is going on. There's some sort of emotional or mental conflict that's going on. When you're done with all of this, I'm going to make a video about writing that opening chapter for your story. And this is another key element to writing an incredible book and seeing it get published, is you got to catch the reader like this. We do not want to open our book with some mundane description. Your book really needs to grab the reader immediately. And then you can fill them in with backstory and description as you get into the first chapter. With the first few paragraphs, you really just want to grip the reader into saying, I got to read this story. I got to have it. So I hope this helps you all get on your way to constructing the outline for this book that you're writing. And I wish you the best of luck. You are always free to contact me personally at amyblackford@live.com. And I'm definitely open to discussing your work one-on-one to help you if you have any direct questions to ask me. Happy writing, and namaste.